in any event, my soliloquy is over to the extent of we know why the exchanges are within the proximity of as they are in New Jersey. They really don't have to be anymore based on how things have changed. Uh, but what does this bill do? I've listened to everyone, and I understand that even at a microcent, at 0.25 cents, that's enough, especially with the way that these small amounts of money are being made, that it would really affect the market. I also understand that they could leave. So the current set of amendments has hopefully incentivized them not to do that. First off, by sending it to just 1/100th of a cent, although it will mean a lot to the taxpayer of New Jersey, it won't mean a lot to investors or anybody else that's an aspect of the market. As well as the 2-year sunset provision, uh, that would hopefully include the motivation of that. Are we really going to move our data centers, or dismantle New Jersey centers as a secondary site for the sake of 2 years? Now, the fiscal note is out, and the amount of money that 1/100th of a penny would mean to the taxpayers of New Jersey is about $500 million a year. We're basically talking about $1 billion here. Who's paying that? Now, it's up to the exchanges are going to collect it for us, but if they pass that along to the banks or to that aspect of it, they can. Can the banks pass that along to their customers? They can. That's going to be up to them. I won't go on a sidebar about how much money the 5 major banks are making through the second quarter of this year, where everybody else is hurting, but it's billions and in the billions and more than they made the year before. But that's up to them if they want to pass that along. If you're here in New Jersey, like we are, that being passed along to New Jersey investors, well, yeah, but it's being passed along to investors not only all over the country, but all over the world. So New Jersey citizens are paying a tiny sliver of that. It almost reminds me of like a federal match. It's almost that good for our taxpayers relative to the very minuscule amount of that $1 billion over 2 years that'll actually come out of New Jersey pockets. I can go through a lot of tangential, benefits of this. I tell you that, sadly, the top 10% of the earners in this country have 94% of the dollars that are lined up that are as a part of all these respective markets and these products that would be encompassed by this bill. So this is progressive to say the least, and that you're talking about a $1.30 a year on an individual. And now, if you're an individual investor who likes to buy shares on their own, first 10,000 exchanges, not shares, but transactions are exempted. And so with all of that, I really, along with the prime sponsor, Senate President Sweeney, listened. And we think that this is a very reasoned compromise. And just the last point to make is like, well, this great financial industry here in New Jersey and Hoboken and in Jersey City, are they all going to go away? No, they're not. They don't have to. In the same way that the New York Stock Exchange said, hey, we're going to prove to you that we could move. And you didn't have to prove it to me. I knew you could. And they traded out of Illinois for 3 days. You didn't see everybody have to move to go chase them. It doesn't have to happen anymore. It won't. So that's something else that they have out there that would be a fallout to this. I'm asking this industry to be a part of the solution in what's the most difficult time. I will bore you to tears if I went through the reasons why we could do per the Constitution and per the Supremacy Clause, the Commerce Clause, and the Internet Tax Freedom Act, while attorneys a lot smarter than me that deal with kind of issues day in, day out have said this is absolutely legal if this is what we determined to do under the case law that's already there and otherwise. I hope that the panelists don't end up getting into that kind of esoteric part of this because it's almost the tail wagging the dog. But again, a lot of us has listened to what they've had to say already. I think if they don't concede that there's significant, extraordinary compromise on our part as to where the bill has traveled to, then they would be disingenuous. And the last piece of what I say is that there's no aspect of animus that I have, or any of it should, toward Wall Street, toward the financial industries, They are our neighbors, our friends. We should celebrate the profits that are made, notwithstanding my misgivings about high frequency trading and how I think that's negative for the market. But we're not Congress. Congress to figure out. And the last point, because I'm the chairman and I could make it, is you could run, but you can't hide, right? Because Illinois, funny enough, where the New York Stock Exchange has a piece of legislation pending in that state already, basically to do the same thing as we are, only at an extent that's not sunsetted and for money that's much more significant. And so wherever one might go, let alone the federal government and their consideration of this as appropriate and fair source of resources, is probably what the future is. So thank you for listening to me. I needed to get that out. And